Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening. I hope you're all doing well this fine Friday. It's just gone 9 p.m. here in the UK. I did intend to do this particular live stream last night, but if you were observant, then you'd know that I wasn't there. I had allergies. I always have allergies at night this time of year, and I was coughing and sneezing and stuff, so there's that. So I took a double dose of antihistamines, which kind of makes me a bit drowsy. So it would have been a really bad idea to do a live stream last night. I've got allergies now, but they're not too bad. It's pollen. I get really bad allergies like in springtime, and then again this time of year. So I'm only allergic to certain pollens. So it must be whatever is pollinating at this particular time does me in. So there's that. All right, so we're going to do Sarah Carbaugh tonight, who is another supposed eyewitness. She was important in the probable cause affidavit because she allegedly saw a muddy and bloody man walking along County Road North, just in the daylight, just walking along, minding his own business. But it turns out that she didn't actually see a muddy and bloody man. Whether she saw a man at all is questionable. So we're going to go through her testimony tonight. All right, I'm going to say a couple of hellos before we get going. I'm going to get straight into it in a second. We got Shazza in the house. We got We Are Dust. We got Holly. We got Mimi Tonya. We got Squatchman. The ID channel is running an episode on Delphi, rerun from 2021. I used to have the ID channel back in the day, years ago when I had Sky TV. And I used to watch ID channel. I used to quite like it, but I ditched Sky because it was too expensive, and I don't have a TV at all now. So I have Paramount Plus. I have a subscription of Paramount Plus through my phone, so I don't know whether that has ID channel, but interesting. Well, that would be before all of this current debacle went down, wouldn't it? 2021. So it would have been like the Keg and Klein era, or was it even before that? Interesting. We got Professor in Mathematics and Science. We got Dark Willow. We got Mimi Tonya, who's shopping for school shoes. Oh, I remember that. Oh, I remember those days. Never again. Never again. I'm glad I'm too old for all of that stuff now. Yeah, good luck with that. We got Journey Takes a Trip, Queen of Ravens, CW. We got Tessa, Aquamarine, Carol, Melissa, Jamie. We got Paper Chaser. We got, I think I said We Are Dust, Broken Goth Doll, Susan. Am I going to get down to the bottom? I am. I'm down at the bottom. Can tell it's school holidays weather's turned cold. Exactly. The last few years, we've had a nice spring. And then when the kids kick out of school for 6 weeks, it's like raining and chilly. And then when they go back to school, it's sunny again for another month. Yeah, exactly. It's not stopping the kids around here having a good time. They seem to be enjoying their summer holiday. Anyway, all right, without further ado, what's this about? You are not signed in. What are you talking about? Why am I not? I don't even know. What do you mean? Hold on, I'll just take this off screen for a second. I don't know what it means. I am signed in. I'm on YouTube. Of course I'm signed in. I'm signed into Google because I'm on YouTube. Jesus Christ. All right, let's just take this off screen a second while I sort this out. Okay, retry. Why are you not going to let me sign in? Let's have a see. Still not signed in. What are you talking about? Right, I'm just going to go out of and come back in again. All right, I think we're okay now. Well, what a weirdo. What an absolute weirdo. There we go. All right. Okay, we're back. We're back. That was just so weird. I didn't have to sign in. All I did was refresh this page and it let me, whatever. Okay, so like we did the other night, I'm not going to read it word for word. We're just going to pick out the relevant, important bits. So we know that Sarah lives in Delphi and she's lived there all her life. But she lives in the countryside. She's not in the town. I guess with it, she's within, you know, an address code of Delphi. She knows the Morning Highbridge Trail very well because she takes the dogs there on an almost daily basis. The dogs are not friendly, so she goes there so she can walk them in private. Seems to be quite a few people visit the Morning Highbridge Trail, so I don't consider it that private unless she doesn't actually go on the trails and she wanders through the woods, you know, kind of like I do with my unfriendly dogs. Okay. So she travels past the Morning Highbridge entrance, going to and from her home. Yes. So we do know that she was travelling either to or from her home on the afternoon of 13th of February 2017. So I'm going to start from here. What entrance do you use to enter the Highbridge Trail? And she says it's the one known as the Mears entrance. And Stacey Dina says the jury's heard some about that. Let's talk about that a little bit. So it's across from the property belonging to the Mears family. And it is this one. It is this one right here. So here's the Morning Highbridge. This is the Mears entrance. There's the Mears farm right there. So that's where it gets its name from. So we know that Betsy Blair parked there. We know that Abby and Libby were dropped off there. We know that Kelsey was driving in this direction because she got caught on this camera. And likewise, Sarah Carbaugh was caught on camera when she was passing going eastwards. And we'll hear about that shortly. But here we've got a picture of Sarah Carbaugh's car. That's apparently Sarah Carbaugh. This time isn't correct. We don't actually know. We don't actually 100% know what time any of this stuff occurred. We just have to believe. We just have to believe the state of Indiana when they tell us that they know that this was 50 some minutes fast. So instead of 1650, this was around 1556, 1557 that she was caught passing. So we know that this is just short of an hour out, according to the state of Indiana. But how do we know? How do we know? I did a whole video about this when this came out. How do we know they're telling the truth about how fast this how fast this clock was? We actually don't know. So anyhow, just another thing. So can you describe it? She says it's an entrance across from the family homestead of the Mears family. The land around the Morning Trail was donated, or I believe donated, or still owned by the Mears family, but it's opened up to the public for public access. The trail is directly in front of the house. It's an old access point from the house to what used to be the lower field that no longer exists. And that entrance there, you can park about 4 cars. Okay. So she knows it very well. She knows the history of the place very well. I bet she knows plenty of people around there, you know, who might put her up to telling some kind of tall story about seeing a muddy and bloody man. We have to just imagine the scenario that Sarah Carbaugh might have been put up to telling this story. I'm not saying she was. I'm just saying it's possible. Okay. So she used to walk the bridge when she was a kid, but she doesn't do it now. But she didn't know Abby or Libby. All right. She knows the history of the entire area, but she doesn't know Abby or Libby. All right. Okay. All right. Let's go back down. Okay. So did she walk on the trail that day? No, but she passed. She was driving by in her little red Saturn. trying to scope out how busy the trail was by how many vehicles were parked at the Mia's entrance. So she has to do a recce before she goes. I mean, her dogs must be that unfriendly that she has to drive by. She does a drive-by before she goes there. All right, cool. So how many times did you pass the entrance that day? 3 to 4 times. This is just so weird. Why don't you make it? She must have really, really unfriendly dogs. So she drove by 3 or 4 times that day to find a time when it was quiet to take her dogs. Well, the dogs obviously didn't get a walk that day because it got very busy after this. Because once Abby and Libby were reported missing, then everybody was down there looking. So tell us about your day, February 13th, to put it into perspective. So it was a day off, got up, go to town, went to get something to eat during lunchtime frame. Then I'll admit it was a beautiful day. I was like, I believe 37 degrees. It was a warm day for February. So I drove around the country many times, just checking everything out. Trying to get some sunlight in. So she drove around, right? She drove around in her car to get some sunlight in. What an absolute freak show this woman is. I'm sorry, she is. Like, how can you get sunlight in from your car? Unless you have like your windows open and your arms hanging out, you're not going to get any sunlight. Like, if she's trying to get some like vitamin D or something, she just needs to, I don't know, walk about, not drive around in her car. That's just nuts. Passed by 3 to 4 times to see how busy it was, and there were vehicles there every time. Okay. So the last time she drove by, it was around the 4 o'clock hour. Noticed a group of people at the Mia's entrance. Noticed a girl that I believe from my memory, because it's been about 7 years now, she had bright blonde hair. I remember either something hot pink, either she was wearing hot pink or the moped she was driving was hot pink. Okay. I just remember her talking to a group of people and looking stressed out. So she saw all this. She saw all this from her car, right? She's all this group of people. Well, when she went by the Who's Your Harvest Store camera at 3:56, 3:57, there would be a group of people who were just starting to accumulate at the Mia's entrance, because that was Derek German, Libby's dad, went there at like 3:15, and he had a walk around, couldn't find them. He ended up going back to his car and making phone calls. So people started to turn up knowing that Abby and Libby were missing. So this was even before the cops were called. People had started to congregate to help look for Abby and Libby. So there would have been, by 4, there would have been a few people there. So at the exact same time that the Muddy and Bloody Man was seen by Sarah Carbaugh, there's a whole group of people congregating at the Mia's entrance, and none of them saw the Muddy and Bloody Man. Make that make sense? Because where she is here, so it's just before the Who's Your Harvest Store entrance, so she would have been like here, just before the entrance, or just after the entrance, going this way. Hold on, let me look at the phone. No, just before. You see, just before. All right, so she would have been here. And just down the road here is the group of people congregating, looking for Abby and Libby. So this Muddy and Bloody Man that she saw had to be somewhere in this vicinity as she was driving by. So how come nobody here saw him? How does that work? Like, did he carry on walking along this trail and then hop through the woods and just pop out just as she was passing, or what? Doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. But yet, this was one of the things that was made a big deal of in the probable cause affidavit. You know, that Betsy Blair supposedly saw Richard Allen on the bridge, and then Sarah Carbaugh at couple of hours later, saw the muddy and bloody man just walking away in broad daylight with blood on him. Because he didn't exist exactly. So she's heading east towards home in that time frame. Okay. So they look stressed out. Tell you now from their mannerisms, it's just they look stressed out. So, but she continued towards her home. Did you see anything else on your way home? Okay. I saw a man covered in mud and blood walking on the side of the road. Well, look, if you saw, right, imagine if you saw a bloody and muddy man walking along the side of the road in broad daylight, I'd have probably stopped and asked him if he was okay. Now, I know that maybe not everybody will because they think it's some kind of like setup and they're going to get jumped and they're going to get killed. I would probably have stopped and said, are you okay? And especially if you see a group of people looking stressed out. So you've got this unusual situation. You've got a muddy and bloody man plus a bunch of people looking stressed out. So you'd think that something unusual was going on. I'd stop. Even just to be nosy, I'd stop. But that's just me. But no, she didn't stop. No. So indicated she was driving eastward on County Road 300 North. So again, she's driving eastward this direction. She's caught on the camera as she's passing Who's Your Harvest Store. And it's on this road that she sees a muddy and bloody invisible man that no one else can see except her. So I don't know, was she hallucinating or something? Right, so where did you see him? Describe where you saw this man with blood and mud walking. So I saw him on this side, like if I'm driving, he was on this side of me. Indicates what? So he was on what I would call the north side of the road, and he was walking west towards town. Okay, so he's on the north side of the road. So he's on the same side of the road as the Who's Your Harvest Store then. So she's driving this way. He's walking in the opposite direction, but on the other side of the road. All right. So if he's the one that's committed the murders, he's had to have come out here or popped through the woods and come out here somewhere and then cross the road. And he's walking on the north side of the road, walking west. All right. Cool. Okay. When you saw this man, did you make eye contact with him? I looked at him, but he did not make eye contact with me. How fast would you normally travel on this road? Like 30, 35. Did you slow down when you approached the man? Yeah, because I mean, there's a man walking on the side of the road. I don't want to hit him. So yeah, I did slow down just a little bit. Okay, well, how could she hit him? How could she have hit him? So he's walking on the north side of the road. Now, if you're in the UK, then you're driving on this side of the road. Right? So you would be driving on the same side of the road, wouldn't you? But I believe in America, you drive on the other side of the road. So you'd be driving on this side of the road. Correct me if I'm wrong. You're driving on this side of the road. So he's all the ways over on the other side of the road. So how could she hit him? Like, was he like staggering about in the road? In which case, I'd definitely stop because I'd think that he'd been hit. If there's a muddy and bloody man staggering around in the middle of the road, I'd think a car's hit him. He needs help. So how could she even possibly hit him? Like, if she thought she was going to hit him, he's on the opposite side of the road. And this isn't a tiny, like, dirt track. It's a proper road. So the story just does not make any sense whatsoever. So she's traveling at 30 miles an hour. She slows down and gets a proper good look at him as she's driving by. I mean, does she slow to what, like 5 miles an hour to get a proper good look at him? Because if she's traveling at 30, there's no way she'd be able to see the blood. You wouldn't be able to differentiate between mud and blood going at 30 miles an hour. It would be a split second. And you wouldn't be able to tell whether the people here were stressed out or not. So she must have slowed right down. So she's crawling along. She's crawling along, getting a good feel for all of these people that are out here. Yet she doesn't bother to stop. Thank you, Coral, for the £5. Thank you so much. Please like and subscribe. Please do. Please do. Please do. It's just nuts. All right. Did you recognise the man? No. At what point did you know that Abby and Libby were missing? Oh, at this point, no one did. I'm going to show you what is marked States Exhibit 220. Do you recognise the area? Yep, it's the road I was on. I don't know if you guys can see from this angle. This is the Mia's entrance. This was the route I was on, going this way. Okay, I'm going to ask you to make an arrow on the road just east of the Mia's entrance. Don't make it too big so you don't have any other space, because I'm going to ask you to mark some other things. Ooh. Then on the south side of the road, or the bottom of the page below it, not the bottom of the page, just below your arrow, write your initials. Okay, my initials, just so you guys are aware, is SC, obviously, because in case... I believe your marker's dying. Okay, now circle the Mia's entrance. Oh, the marker's dying. I know your marker is drying up. Oh, no. Okay, you're doing a good job. Where did you see the man? If you could make a vertical line to designate an area and then get another marker. Just get her another marker. Get her another marker. Okay, so there's that. All right, so there's that. Let me fix all these, and then I'm going to label this as Bridge Guy, because that's who I know him to be, Bridge Guy. So she's decided that this is Bridge Guy. She's decided. All right. So she's not being asked to say, could this be the killer? No, she's just going to say it's Bridge Guy. She's been set up to say this. She's just been set up to say this. So we don't exactly know where she saw him, but she has to have seen him. She has to have seen him between here and here. She has to have seen him here, somewhere along here. So how on earth did these people here and those that were already on the trails looking for Abby and Libby not see him? Because if a muddy and bloody man's walking by and there's 2 teenage girls missing, you know, you might want to apprehend the muddy and bloody man and wait with him until the cops arrive, I would have thought. So no one else saw the muddy and bloody man, even though there was a bunch of people there looking for Abby and Libby. I do not know how this jury convicted Rick Allen. Even if he did it, even if he's guilty, even if he's guilty, the state certainly didn't prove it. They certainly did not prove it. Their witnesses were crap. Their evidence was crap. And this person is completely unbelievable. Now, I do know that the juror that came out said that the jury, when they were deliberating, they didn't really take Sarah Carbaugh's information as very credible. So it turns out that the jury didn't really find her believable anyway. But still, you know, this Sarah Carbaugh nonsense is just one in a long line of nonsense. Okay, so she learnt in the days that it was following. I'm going to show you what's been marked as States Exhibit 210. Do you recognise the picture? Yes. Did you see it on the news? Yes. Saw it on the news. Do you recognise the image? Yes. What do you recognise it as? I recognise it as the man I saw earlier, covered in mud and blood on the road. Okay, so obviously they've shown a picture of Bridge Guy. Yeah, that's the man I saw. That is the man I saw. Yeah, that's right. Sarah can't stay on her own side of the road because she's driving along, hanging out the window to get vitamin D. Exactly, yeah. I hope she's got like an open top car. You know, she can drive along in 37 degrees. So that's like just above freezing. But she can just have like some kind of skinny top on and shorts so that she got lots of skin showing. She's got an open top car and she's just cruising along through the countryside while it's sunny, getting her vitamin D. Oh, God. Oh, God. All right, so this is Bridge Guy. What was different about the man as opposed to his picture? If anything, the difference that I saw in him and the things that made me notice him was, obviously, he was covered in mud and blood. His demeanour and the way he was walking along the side of the road. May I get up and demonstrate? Listen, if this person is not just a fix, she's just, I don't know, bought and paid for or something, she wouldn't be that confident. If she was just some random witness, you know, she would not be so confident. Can I get up and demonstrate? Can I get up and demonstrate how Bridge Guy was walking when he was covered in mud and blood and walking along the road in broad daylight? Dear God. So Sarah, tell us about what you saw on the man that's different from the photograph. He was covered in mud and blood. He was walking along the side of the road and his demeanour was very sketchy. Here's when someone is walking towards you on the side of the road, you know, when you pass them, you're going to look at them, right? And they're going to look back at you. No, you're not. No, you're not. If you're walking along a road, right, so you're on the opposite side of the road, you're not like looking into every single vehicle, are you? Like when I'm walking along the road, if I'm like on a path or along the side of a road and there's cars passing me by, I'm not like looking in, trying to like make eye contact with every driver. If you're going at like 30 miles an hour, why would the driver be trying to make eye contact with pedestrians? This is dangerous. You should have your eyes in front looking at the road. You might side glance at a pedestrian just to make sure that they're not going to do something stupid and run out in front of you. But your eyes should be concentrating on the road in front of you. You're not going to be making eye contact and say, you know, waving them and whatever. Just get on with driving. And if you're a pedestrian, you're not eyeballing unless you recognize the car. Like maybe if a car's approaching and it looks kind of familiar, I might try to get a look at the driver just to see if it's someone I know. But if it's just a random car, no, you're not making eye contact with every single driver. Dear God, even if you're the friendliest person in the world. Okay, so did not look at me. He was walking like this. Demonstrates. Doing that. Demonstrates. And he was covered in mud, mainly on the top down, because this was darker. And then when you go to the bottom, his pants were covered in mud and underneath it was blood spattered on his legs. How could she tell that from a glance? This is absolute nonsense. Absolute, complete and total nonsense. I would love to know what demonstration she gave though. Because this is one of the downsides of only having the transcript. So he's walking along doing this and doing that. Dear me. Obviously drew my attention because he's covered in mud and blood. And how many times is she going to get into this conversation that he was covered in mud and blood? Was that unusual for you to see on County Road North? Yeah, I mean, I literally thought he fell off a cliff, down the cliff rock hill, like he was being stupid, walked too close to the cliffs and just tumbled down the hill. I literally thought that's what's happened to him. So you thought he was injured and you didn't stop to help, or you didn't stop and say to the people, like, if you were too scared to stop and speak to a man, because you're like a lone woman in a car and you're too scared to speak to a man and ask him if he's all right, but you see other people, why wouldn't you just stop, wind your window down and say, there's a guy up there, I think he's injured. Can somebody call, 911 for him? Look at him. He's got blood all over him. He's staggering along. I think he's hurt himself. Why wouldn't you raise the alarm? Why wouldn't you raise the alarm? Do I drive? I can drive. I used to drive. I don't drive now because I'm dangerous. But yes, I can drive. I have a license. I could drive if I wanted to. I could go out right now and drive Kyle's car while he's in Portugal. I could go joyriding. I'm actually not insured on his car, but I could be really reckless and go driving uninsured and everything, because I'm really responsible. Except I wouldn't do that. I would not do that, because I'd probably crash his car and then I'd have to fork out thousands to fix it because I'm uninsured. It'd just be a whole thing, wouldn't it? It'd just be a thing. I better not. Okay. Time of day. Was it still light out? Yes, the sun was in the process of setting. February sunsets are happening around 4:30 in the afternoon. I remember when I passed him, I remember the orange glow hue of the sun behind me as I was heading east. Okay, you remember everything. Well, she knows all about the sun because she's been driving around all day getting her sun rays in. Did you take time to make note of anything else about him as you passed him? Not really, outside of just those main basic observations and just noticing like he was acting sketchy. Do you continue to watch him in your rearview mirror? Not really. Once you saw him in the media, the picture of bridge guy, did you contact the police? Yeah, I did 3 weeks later. So it took her 3 weeks. So we got 2 girls who've been murdered, and she sees a muddy and bloody man walking along the road, and it takes her 3 weeks to call the cops. I do not believe it. If you saw that 2 girls had been murdered and you were walking along a road very close to the Morning High Bridge Trail and you'd seen a man walking along acting sketchy with mud and blood on him, the first thing you would do as soon as you heard that those girls had been murdered in that vicinity is you would have called the police and called that tip in. So why did it take her 3 weeks to do that? Because she was traumatized. Okay, well, how do you think Abby and Libby's families felt? But you were too traumatized to call the tip in. Okay. All right, traumatized by anything murder related. Well, you seem very confident now while you're giving evidence at a murder trial. I will admit I'm still terrified by some of this stuff that's going on. I was scared. I had a gut feeling that this was a local man, and I am a notorious overthinker about how to deal with a lot of these things. My inaction in those 3 weeks was just me panicking and being upset and thinking maybe I saw, like maybe, I don't know. I was just having a moment, a 3-week-long moment. A 3-week-long moment. Wouldn't you? If this is a murder case in your hometown where you've lived all your life, this is your hometown. And wouldn't you just get over the stress that you were feeling and call the tip in? Come on now. And then when 3 weeks later happened, there was an officer who was standing out there by the Mears entrance taking tips. And honestly, I felt like it was fate of God telling me, you need to be brave and go and talk to this officer instead of being scared here, because this needs to be taken care of. Okay. So stopping all cars, yes, they were. They were at a point where they were stopping everybody in 3 different locations. They had, from what I remember, the Mears entrance is where I gave my tip. I also believe they had another like police set up over the opposite side of Mourne Bridge. And then I think there was like a third one somewhere. I do not recall where it was. And they were stopping everybody and asking for tips, because I don't know how many of you are actually familiar and local with this area. But when this happened, it turned this entire county and every member in it upside down, because it's a very small town. Still, it took her 3 weeks, and they were stopping every car. So as she was driving by, they were stopping every car. So she had a split second to make a decision here. She could either get stopped and lie and say, no, I didn't see anything, or admit that she saw a muddy and bloody man. And as she drove that area several times every day, looking for quiet times to take her dogs out, how come in the last 3 weeks when she'd driven by, she hadn't thought to contact the cops? Or was that the first time she'd seen the cops out there, like with a roadblock? Like maybe they didn't do roadblocks for 3 weeks. I don't know. Maybe on the third week they decided to do roadblocks because they weren't getting answers. So you get the likes of Sarah Carbaugh, who supposedly saw this muddy and bloody man, who's not calling in a tip because they're too scared, who then has to make a split-second decision as to whether she's going to lie and say she didn't see anything, or she's going to tell the story about the muddy and bloody man. Thank you, Dina. Thank you so much for the 19.99. Thank you, thank you. She's not trustworthy at all. Not at all. When we contacted law enforcement, said it was several months later. Yeah. Was that the first time you gave an official statement? So then, supposedly she saw a muddy and bloody man, and then it takes several months for the police to contact her. So either what she told them wasn't that credible or interesting. Just let me take my hoodie off. It's starting to boil. So what she told them either wasn't credible or wasn't relevant, that it took them several months. Or, of course, this is the Delphi Police and Carroll County Sheriff's Office, so maybe it does take a month to get around to every single tip. So there could be that as well. However, I'm pretty sure, you know, you'd have to be even more incompetent than Delphi and Carroll County are to not follow up on a tip of a muddy and bloody man. Okay. So during your conversation with law enforcement, did they talk to you about the Who's Your Harvey Store video? Yes. Were you familiar with the Who's Your Harvey Store and its location? I'm familiar with the location. Honestly, I did not realise that there was a store back there. I just know there's a bunch of storage units. I just thought it was just a storage unit building. I didn't know there was a store back there. Okay, didn't know there was a store back there. All right. So law enforcement showed you some still shots from the camera to see if you could help them determine your vehicle on the camera. Yeah. So did you assist in identifying your vehicle the last time you passed by the Mears entrance? This camera, and this would have seen, and this camera would, hold on, let me start that again. And so, did you assist in identifying your vehicle the last time you passed by the Mears entrance and this camera and would have seen the bridge guy? That does not make sense. But here's the thing. This camera would have seen bridge guy. Like, if Sarah Carbaugh's story is accurate, right, you would have seen on this camera a man walking by, surely. Because you can see the trees on the opposite side of the road. So you wouldn't have been able to identify somebody, but you would be able to see somebody. You would be able to see that there was someone walking by. You wouldn't be able to tell whether they got mud and blood on them. They'd be very small and just like a figure, but you would see somebody walking by. So where is the muddy and bloody man on the Who's Your Harvestor camera. Where's that? It's not there. It's not there. So I'd like to show you what Smart states Exhibit 219. It's already been provided to the jury. So that's my old car that I used to have during that time frame. Indicates the time, it's 24-hour clock. The time here says 3:56, close to the 4 o'clock hour. And that's when you recall driving by there. Yeah. Okay, well, it doesn't say 3:56. It says 16:50, which is 10 to 5. So when she says, oh, it says here 3:56, it's not 3:56. It's 10 to 5. So presumably it's been explained to the jury on a previous occasion that the clock on this camera is wrong. But I don't trust these people. I don't trust the cops in Delphi. I don't trust them not to have just made a convenient time frame up for this. How do we know? We've just got their word for it. So, but which the time here says 3:56, close to 4 o'clock hour. Well, no, it doesn't say that at all. So, Judge, the state would like to move and admit Exhibit 220. Objection. All right. Okay. Oh, we've ended somehow. Okay. We end very abruptly. So moves Exhibit 220 in, no objection. I'll pass the witness, Judge. Okay. All right, this is cross-examination. Andy Baldwin. Andrew Baldwin. Hi, Sarah. You used the word mud 11 times in your first interview with the police. Yeah. And you never said the word blood the first time you talked to police. I believe I did, but it's not my portion of law enforcement. It's not my portion of law enforcement to catch on to those things, because I believe I said mud and blood at one point. I do know that in the transcript for that area, it had me mumbling, and I will admit my first interview, I was very nervous and I mumbled and rambled a lot. I honestly don't think, however inept and incompetent these cops are, if somebody, a witness who was driving by the road, I don't think they would have mistook mud for blood 11 times. If you were mumbling and you said mud and it was like, no, you would say, could you repeat that, please? Because it managed to pick up, they managed to pick up mud 11 times, but not the blood. So she says she said blood once. Well, isn't the blood the most important thing if you know 2 girls have been murdered? The fact that a muddy guy is walking along the road, well, yeah, he may have fallen in something. He may be a farm worker who's on his way home or something. There's all sorts of reasons why somebody got mud on them. But blood, when you know that there's a murder just happened, you'd forget the mud. It would be the blood that would be on your mind. And how would she see the blood? Because it's meant to be under the mud. Just come on now. Come on now. Come on now. So Andy Baldwin says, when you said mud the first time in that interview, you didn't say mud and blood. No, I didn't. The second time, you didn't say, oh, I saw him with mud and blood, did you? I said mud and blood, I believe. I'm trying to remember how many times I mentioned it. But there was a portion where I stand up in my little video from my interview, and that's when I said it. Come on now. How can the jury sit and listen to this and not think that it's just complete and total nonsense? But you are admitting in that transcript, blood does not appear. It does not appear. All right. Now, nobody prevented you from, when you were saying mud, pairing it up with blood, did they? Nobody said, well, if you say mud, don't say blood. Yeah, no one said anything like that. So you just didn't say mud and blood. I said mud and blood once, but mud a lot of times, because he really was caked in mud. If he was caked in mud, she wouldn't know that there was blood underneath the mud. Come on now. I mean, what was it dripping out? Like dripping behind him, like a trail of it? Come on now. The blood doesn't appear in the transcript. It does not in the first one. So, Dina. Objection, judge, asked and answered. Sustained. Of course it was. Now, you were interviewed a couple of weeks later, weren't you? Yes. And you said this time the word mud 13 times in that interview to law enforcement, right? I believe so. And in that interview, you never mentioned the word blood. So now we've got 2 interviews where she never mentions the word blood. I believe I did, because I believe in that second interview, there's at least an hour worth of video transcript that's missing. Oh, so an hour's worth of her transcript is missing. So is this yet another interview that the Delphi police have lost? Are we admitting that we've got her being interviewed and wasn't everything lost from these early days? Like a load of stuff got lost. And we know that a whole week got lost, like in the first week, that all that got lost. You know, when Brad Holder was interviewed, that all mysteriously got lost. You know, it got written over by accident, supposedly. But now, Sarah Carbaugh, under oath, at a murder trial, is saying that an hour's worth of her video interview has been lost. So there's missing video that you say you think you said blood. I just know there's at least an hour portion of that interview that I personally have not been able to rewatch because it's gone. Oh, so that's the excuse. That's the excuse. That's the excuse. So can I refresh your recollection with the transcript? And could you have an opportunity to review it? You're welcome to. Okay. So I'm handing you June 19th, 2017. Guess what I'm asking you to do to refresh your recollection, whether you use the word blood in the transcript of that interview. I do not see anything in here, but I will remember that. I do remember talking to that officer about it and being able to describe what I saw, and I marked it on an image. Okay, but in this transcript, there's no mention of the word blood. No. No blood. No. No one prevented you from saying blood? No. Okay, third interview. You never said the word in that interview muddy, did you? That interview also took 2 years later, and at this point, I understand you're doing your job and you're doing great at it. Oh, thanks, gee, thanks. I bet Andy Baldwin was pleased that Sarah Carbaugh thinks he's doing great. But the details of that day are simple as it is. I saw a bridgeman walking along the side of the road at the 4 o'clock hour. He was covered in mud and blood, and that's that. Except in March of 2019, your third interview, you never said mud, you just said blood. Oh, so now he's not caked in mud. So 2 years later, he's now no longer caked in mud. Now he's covered in blood. Okay. All right. You mean the opposite because are you trying to manipulate the question? No, I'm not trying to be tricky. Thank you for saying that. You are correct. In March, your third interview, you never used the word mud. You only said blood. Correct. In my third interview, yes. I believe I said mud and blood. My description of him is always going to stay the same because my memory of him now, you think your description is always going to stay the same. Yeah, my description is bridgeman. Of course it is. But you remember a third interview in 2019. Yeah. If you would like, it would help you refresh your recollection. All right. Okay. Okay. To see if you ever said the word mud or muddy to the officer, if I provide the transcript. Objection. Asked and answered. Oh, overruled. Oh, the defence has actually won an objection in their favour. So March 2019, I'm handing you the entire transcript from March 2019. Will you please read it for the word mud or muddy and let me know when you are ready? Sorry, at the beginning of this, I was rambling a lot, apparently. Definitely mentioned blood in here, but I do not see mud. So a moment ago, ma'am, you said in your description you're always consistent, mud and blood. That's not true. I guess not. But in fact, you said the word blood 16 times in that third interview. So it seems that she can't say mud and blood together. So it has to be mud. And then 2 years later, when maybe she's had her head turned or something, she gets rid of all the mud and she replaces it all with blood. Okay. Okay. So she said it 16 times. In fact, you said it looked like a hog had just been slaughtered. That's how much blood you saw. I've never slaughtered hogs. I just know blood spatter, and that is something that I use as an analogy. So as far as how accurate the description is, I don't know, because I've never slaughtered a hog. So the mud from 2017 in your first interview turned into blood in 2019. Yeah. No, it's still mud and blood. You've indicated on your direct examination you thought maybe he had fallen down a cliff, and that's why he was muddy. Yeah, and he had blood on him. Why would I suspect he was a murderer at that point? I don't know. Well, maybe the day after you'd think he was the murderer when you heard on the news that 2 girls had been murdered. And just a day previous, you'd seen a muddy and bloody man walking along the road in the very close vicinity of where the girls were found. Did you stop to help him? No, I'm a woman. I'm not going to stop and help a random man. You could call the cops, though. You could call 911 and say, there's a man covered in blood walking down the road. I don't want to stop because I'm a lone woman. Can somebody go and help him? You would at least do something. I'd stop because I'm not nervous, right? Come on now. In that first interview, you told law enforcement that the colour of his coat was tan, not blue, correct? I did, but I will say this was inaccurate. Oh, okay. So he wasn't wearing a blue coat. He was wearing a tan coat. Now, we know that Bridge Guy was wearing a blue coat. So it can't be Bridge Guy unless he took 2 coats with him. If he took 2 coats with him, all right, he's taken his blue one off and he's put his tan one on. Well, how come then the tan one is full of mud and blood? And if he'd thought to have taken another coat, surely he would have taken a pair of jeans as well. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. I did, but I say this was inaccurate. It changed to blue after your second interview when you saw States Exhibit 210, correct? Which is Bridge Guy. Correct, but it was always blue. In my first interview, I'll admit I did describe the colour of that coat wrong. It's not like blue and tan are close to each other. If you take like a colour chart and you look at, colours, blue and tan are quite different, aren't they? Like blue's on one end of a colour spectrum and tan is close to the other end. Tan's got some red shades in it. To make tan, you would use black, yellow, and a little bit of red to make tan. I know, because I paint. So there's no blue in tan. So there's that. Now, maybe she's colourblind. Maybe she's colourblind. And blue and tan look the same to her, but I don't think she uses this as an excuse. Was this Rosie? No, this is Andrew Baldwin doing this cross. Correct, but it was always blue. What she just said the colour. You just said the colour wrong. You just said it wrong. Blue and tan, easy mistake to make. You know, maybe if it was blue and she said turquoise, maybe that's close. Or maybe some kind of dark green, that's also close, you know, looking at a distance, but she seemed to have got a good view of him, whatever. So there's that. Swine noodle. Noodle's whining for. Probably needs a wee. You'll go and do one by the back door if I don't let him out, but wait and see. The reason why I feel my memory remembers more brown than blue is because of the fact he was covered in a lot of mud. So how can she say that it was Bridge Guy then? If he's covered in so much mud, she wouldn't have known what he was wearing. So how could she say it was Bridge Guy? Could have been anybody. So Andrew Baldwin says, I mean, in your second interview, you even indicated to the person that was interviewing you, I don't want to be contaminated with the photo, so please don't show it to me. You are right. And I still don't know. You guys know more about this case than I do. I really want, outside of this testimony, I want nothing to do with any of this. So the answer is yes. Yes. You did not want that officers to show you the photo. Correct. But then he did. I mean, it's hard not to. It's all over the news, all over every single social media. It was plastered all over town. There are still photos of him plastered all over town. It's hard not to notice that image. All right, so she adapted her description to fit Bridge Guy. I see. Got you. In fact, the law enforcement officer, not only put it in front of you when you asked him not to, he asked you to keep it there during the entire interview so that you could be looking right at it if you wanted to. Maybe I don't remember if that was his exact wording or if that's why he put the image down on the table. I just knew it was there. And after he put that image there, that's when your story started to change. No, my story has never really changed because tan and blue are so similar. The only thing that probably has done me wrong is my anxiety over all of this. Okay. You also indicated that in the second interview that the guy you saw on 300 North was wearing a brown sweater. So she can now see underneath his coat to know that he's wearing a brown sweater. So he's got a brown sweater on and a tan coat. Oh, he's colour coordinated, this guy with the mud and blood. How colour coordinated he is. So he's wearing a brown sweater, I mean, under his tan coat or blue coat. It was a blue coat. You also told the guy on the road had a curl to his hair. Okay, so this is now starting to sound like brown poofy hair. This is starting to sound like the guy that Betsy Blair saw. And none of that description that Betsy Blair gave is in any way indicative of Richard Allen. Dear me. So she says, he had a little bit of hair poking out. Now, whether or not it's curly, it's hard to say. I passed him on the road while I was driving. He could have been sweaty. He was covered in mud. It could have just flipped up from that aspect. But he had a little bit of hair at the time peeking out. Okay, you also thought he had very effeminate eyes. What are you romanticizing this man? Cause those are your words. Want to see them? I never said he had very romantic eyes. Effeminate eyes. You never said that. Effeminate is not the same as romantic. Effeminate means female-like, feminine-like. So a pretty boy, you'd say, or I don't know, you say he's very effeminate. He looks like a girl. So, no, I didn't. Do you remember taking a deposition with us, Brad? And yeah, would it help refresh your recollection if I have you review your words from this deposition? I believe as part of that deposition, there's stuff in there I don't think we're talking about. Oh, so you know the things that they're not allowed to talk about. Interesting. Interesting. Would it help refresh your recollection whether you said very effeminate eyes? No, I'm good. Oh, so she doesn't want to see the piece of paper that will remind her that she said he had effeminate eyes. I don't think anybody could say Rick Allen has got effeminate eyes. But the pretty boy that was on Morning High Bridge that Betsy Blair saw with the brown poofy hair, who was in his 20s, now could he have effeminate eyes? Possibly. But I wouldn't say that looked like Richard Allen, and I wouldn't say Richard Allen had got effeminate eyes. You said effeminate eyes. That's the person you saw with effeminate eyes. Dina says objection, asked and answered. Sustained. No, she's not answered anything. She's refusing to look at the deposition to remind her that she said effeminate eyes. She's not answered anything. So Baldwin says, I don't think she's answered it. Dina says she doesn't recall. Well, I'd have her. And then Carbaugh says, then I do not recall. I don't remember ever saying he had feminine eyes. So Dina has now put it in her head to say doesn't recall. So would it help refresh your recollection if I showed this to you? No, I'm good. You also claim not to have your phone with you all the time. You were driving on that day. Is that accurate? Look, I would have pushed that. I would have said, here it is. I would have slapped it on the table and said, here it is. This is where you said effeminate eyes. This is where you said it. Now, Gull would probably have thought that was some kind of contempt of court because I would have approached the witness without her permission. But I would have done it. I'd have held it up to the jury. And said, this is the deposition I'm talking about. This is where she says effeminate eyes. I would have made it a massive point to make that very, very clear. But it seems he moves on. So I thought I had my phone with me. I don't feel like, this day and age, I don't feel like I would have left the house without my phone and been driving around the country for hours on end without a cell phone. Driving around the country for hours on end, getting some sun rays in. Also, they pinged. Part of the reason they were able to contact me was because my cell phone pinged off the tower. So your information there is incorrect. Okay. I thought, why did they ping a phone? Why did they have to get a phone? Why? Because she approached them, didn't she, with a tip? So why would they have to ping her phone? Interesting. So did you get that's right around the time the girls were found? Is that your understanding? Or do you know? I don't even know where they were found at. Around the mayor's entrance, your phone apparently pinged. Is that what you're saying? I know they also went through the cell phone tower that's nearby, and they went through every single person whose cell phone pinged on that tower. Andy Baldwin says, what? And she says, and that my phone did ping off that tower. Okay. What's your provider? Verizon. So you had 3 weeks of sheer panic, and then, even after seeing the photo on the TV, and then it took you 3 weeks to go and talk to the police. Yeah, I was a chicken, cowardly lion right here, just a chicken. So you saw a guy half a football field or so past the Mias. Objection, judge, form of question. He's putting testimony in the question that hasn't been previously testified to. Sustained. Yeah, it would have been in the geofence, yeah. But the geofencing, they're not allowed to talk about. Geofencing was banned, so they're not allowed to talk about the geofencing. But I would have thought that opened the door. I would have thought that answer opened the door. Where, like the witness saying that her phone pinged, that opens the door. Unbelievable. So half a football field or so past the Mias. So we've got, even though that was sustained. So Mias here. So half a football field. So short, not far from the Mias entrance. So if it's only half a football field away from the Mias entrance, then the muddy and bloody man had to have, there's no other way he could have done it, walked up this trail. I mean, yeah, he could have walked past and then gone through this wooded area and then popped up here. But I'm pretty sure that the people congregating here at that exact time would have seen him. Because even if he hadn't have walked straight past them all with his mud and blood everywhere like he'd slaughtered a pig, he would have been very close to him if he hopped out of the woods here, if he's only half a football field away from the entrance. Somebody would have seen him. She's lying. She's lying. She's absolutely 100% lying. Sue me, Sarah. I'd love you to. Yeah, so she only gave a statement after she was picked up on the geofence. Well, she says that she was driving by and she saw a cop and then she gave a tip. But now she seems to be saying that her phone pinged and she was contacted because her phone pinged in the area. So whichever, we don't know. We don't know. But the fact that she mentioned her phone being pinged and being contacted because her phone pinged, that opens the door to discuss the geofencing. Anyway, that's been and gone. So you were traveling around 35 miles an hour when you saw this person. I believe so. But I'll admit, I didn't exactly look at the gauge when I was driving by. All right, so she could have been doing 45 for all we know. But she did say under direct that she was slowed down because she just wanted to look closely at this guy. She wanted to look into his effeminate eyes. I don't know. Just I was driving slow enough that I obviously was not speeding past him, but enough to at least look at him when I noticed him. And you only saw him for a mere instant. I would say probably 30 seconds at most. Well, if you're driving 30 miles an hour, you get quite far in 30 seconds. You're going to be well past him in 30 seconds if you're driving at 30. Jesus Christ. From like point of driving down to when I no longer saw him because I saw the people here, looked forward, saw him on the side of the road, drove past him, and then went on my merry way home. So from driving down to where I no longer saw him because I saw the people here, looked forward, saw him on the side of the road, drove past him, and then went on my way. So she sees the people here. So she's driving along. So he had to be close to the entrance. He had to be close to the entrance. If she's seen those people looking stressed, and then she looks up and sees him, he has to be here. He has to be in this vicinity. So how come no one else saw him? If you're driving 30 miles an hour, you're going to have gone... Hold on, I'm going to ask AI. Okay. All right. How far would I travel in 30 seconds if I was going at 30 miles per hour? Okay. All right. Quarter of a mile. So if she's doing, if she drove for 30 seconds going at 30, she would have traveled a quarter of a mile. So she'd be way down the road. So she had to be driving at like 5 miles an hour to have been able to eyeball him for 30 seconds. Come on now. None of this makes any sense whatsoever. Unless she's got supersonic vision and she could see him from a quarter of a mile away. She could see him from a quarter of a mile away, you know, while she's driving along at 30 miles an hour. Well, I stand corrected. In terms of the details, you saw him for a mere second, the details of his face. I'd say about 30 seconds. Not enough to go like, aha, is this man right here? But enough to be like, yeah, that's a white man in his 30s to 40s, maybe 50s. This guy is covered in mud and blood. He's very suspicious. He's wearing an extreme amount of layers for a day that's nice and warm, and he's just being weird. Okay. So she had to have been able to see him. So he's here. All the people are here. She had to have been able to see him ways over here, like quarter of a mile away. She had to have been able to get a really good look at him as she was driving all along here. Absolutely not. Absolutely not. You wouldn't see the mud and the blood. You wouldn't see how old he was. You wouldn't see anything. You'd see a figure in the distance, quarter of a mile away. You remember being deposed when Mr. Rosie and I deposed you? Yeah. You told us you only saw him for a mere instant. Isn't that correct? I would say 30 seconds is a mere instant, unless your instant is a different definition to my instant. That's fair. It is. That's fair. A mere instant in your world is 30 seconds. Yes. Okay. And you also did not have time to study any details on this person you saw. Yeah, well, I can't tell you how many freckles he had, or if he had feminine eyes, any of that. Well, do you want to refresh your recollection about the effeminate eyes? I believe I said no. You know, I don't have any questions, thank you. That's absolutely infuriating. That's infuriating. Infuriating. All right, redirect. Got Miss Dina back. All right, Sarah, let's start with the tan sweater. When you say tan sweater, what kind of clothing are you describing? See, in this instance, it'd be like a hoodie. And when you a hoodie is not a sweater. I'm sorry. So no, she's now saying that the brown sweater she saw is now a hoodie. Okay. So when you say a hoodie, would that be a pullover type of thing that had a hood on it? Yeah, like think of your sweater that you pull over, has a pocket in the front and has a hood on the back. The biggest thing is it has a hood. Okay, so you could see a tan hood. Yes, I believe. And you indicated there was a question about whether you saw hair. Did you see a hat on this person? Yes, there was a hat. So now you're leading. Now you're leading. Could you describe the hat? The hat was odd to me, which I will admit that I'm really only familiar with baseball caps. Anything else, it's a weird hat to me. So I just remember it was a funky looking hat, not one that's common in my wardrobe. Did it have a bill on it? I think so, but I'll admit I've already been shown so many pictures of hats over the years in every interview, done so many. Like it's just like a Tinder profile now, flipping hats. Okay, could you have mistaken hair for a part of the hat? Maybe, but did this hat have anything that covered the ears? I saw the bottom of his ears. She saw the bottom of his ears from a quarter of a mile away. Quarter of a mile away, I tell you. Also, he was hunched like this. I don't know if it's also kind of pushed his hat up. Because I admit, like I remember, it was a weird hat. I'm sorry, like my mind is a little tainted when it comes to the hat. I cannot tell you the exact details of the hat anymore without feeling like I've been compromised. The entire thing's compromised. Your entire world has been compromised. Good God. When you were describing what part of his ears you could see, you were hunching your shoulders, correct? It was just like the lower bits of his ears. Well, if he's hunched over, how is she seeing the bottom of his ears? Right. If she sees the bottom of his ears and he's hunched, he'd be leaning forward. So you wouldn't see his ears at all. This is just unbelievable. I mean, what kind of anatomy did this guy have? You can see his ears well, he's hunched. So he was hunched up. He's walking along, hunched up. Still nobody helps him. What if he just led down and died there at the side of the road, having fallen down a cliff or been hit by a car, and he dies, and you just leave him? Would you feel a little bit shitty then that you didn't call anyone? Or did it not happen? I'm going to go with the latter. Could you see his hands? No, he had his hands in his pockets the entire time. How would you describe his posture? Weird, sketchy. How would you describe it? He was slumped over. He was kind of like curled into himself. So he's walking along so hunched over that he's curled up. He's curled while he's walking. How is she seeing his ears? How is she seeing his body clearly? How is she seeing his hair if he's hunched over, if he's got a hat on? Dear God. Then you said that someone told you that they identified your phone number in the ping. Is that correct? Yes. Then you said they checked all the numbers that came up in that ping. Do you personally know that? I just know that because my family lives nearby and they all got called and questioned. And listen, this is the geofence. This has opened the door to bring in the geofencing. I wish the defence, maybe they do at some point in the trial, I don't know, like made another play to get the geofencing in, because this opens the door. This absolutely opens the door. Now we've got Stacey Dina talking about phone pings with a witness. It opens the door to bring geofencing in. Just like because all right, I've read that. I remember the time frame talking on social media. They mentioned that their phones were pinged and talked to through that process. Is your process of being interviewed multiple times? Did an officer talk to you about your phone being located in the area? Yes, I believe it was either in the first or second interview. Did officers indicate to you that they were trying to make contact with everybody's phones that pinged in the area? Yes, they were. Okay. Contacting everything. I feel it's important to point out that they're also following thousands of tips in that time frame. Fair. Let's only talk about what you personally know. Okay. Do you believe you learned something about phone numbers in the pinged area from law enforcement? Yes, I believe. Okay, let's talk about your second interview. You indicate that you had an opportunity to review your second interview. Okay, is that correct? Yeah. When you started to observe the second interview, did you notice that a portion of the discussion with the officer was missing? Yes, a good portion. So more interviews that the cops apparently seem to have lost conveniently. Okay, and you indicated to Mr. Baldwin that you believed it was an hour to an hour and a half. Is that correct? During that portion of the interview, you were telling the officer about mud and blood on the person. That's so convenient, isn't it? That just the bit that she talked at length about the mud and blood goes missing. How convenient is that? Unbelievably convenient. During that time period, the officer provided you with a picture of Bridge Guy? Yeah. At that point, you indicated to him you'd already seen the image? Yeah. You asked to mark on that picture of Bridge Guy what you observed in the neighbourhood of mud and blood? In the neighbourhood of mud and blood? Doesn't make sense. I'd like to show you what's marked Stakes Exhibit 221. I do. It's the image I marked on here. When you guys go to look at it, well, I'll let you talk about it. Oh, sorry. Okay. Recognize the image? Yeah. Okay. All right. During the first hour to an hour and a half of that interview in June of 2017, had you and the officer already communicated that the person you saw on the side of the road you believed to be Bridge Guy? Yeah. And that was the image produced in media? Yeah. Okay, so you were then asked to indicate on this photograph. You did unask. I don't know how at this moment, but you marked on it. Yeah, I marked on it. We were trying to illustrate. So they've got the picture where she marked where the mud and blood was, yet there's no mention of blood in that interview. Okay. So she says, it's easier for me to talk with my hands. So down here on the bottom, these dots, this is what I was indicating as blood. So now it's just dots, just a few dots that she sees from a quarter of a mile away. The lines that are up the pants are mud. Same with right here. And then this up here was me trying to put an outline to that pesky hat. But this is just a line to kind of indicate the outline of his hat. But mud, lines for mud on his coat, dots of blood on his pants. So you're using an ink pen to draw on that photograph. I was using a pencil. If I knew it was going to be evidence, I would have given you guys a nice little marker down thing that was color-coded. So she'd have got the officer to get a crayon set out. We'd have had a whole artist's impression of this guy. She'd have had the crayons and she'd be really sketching it all out and colouring it all in. If she knew it was ever going to be evidence that this is a double murder, so she doesn't think that this evidence that she's given about a muddy and bloody man is never going to be seen in court of law. Never going to go that far. She's never going to have to answer questions about not saying blood in her interviews. Dear God. Dear God. So is that mud or blood or both? I saw it as mud, But the coat was dark enough that if he had blood on it, it would not have drawn my attention as quickly as the light coloured pants with the red blood on it. But she said previously that the blood was under the mud. So how would the blood show up at all? If he was caked in mud, how would the blood show up at all? I believe some of the sleeves. Once again, I'm sorry, guys. If I knew this was going to be like this, I would have done it in better marker. But I believe I did get some on the sleeves, maybe. So on the sleeves, mud or blood. They were mud. But then on the pants, you have a little, looks like raindrops almost. Yeah. All those splatters of blood, mud or blood, they're blood. And you said lower on the pants. He was caked in mud. Like, okay. Like he was caked in mud, like he had to be right down by the river. So he was really muddy. Yeah. Now, with your third interview, you asked, why didn't you talk so much about the mud and blood? And you already told multiple officers in your first interview about mud and blood. Objection. That's not what the evidence showed in the first interview. Sustained. Yeah, cool. Yeah, cool. Have you indicated to the officers in your first interview there was mud and blood? Yes. Objection. That's not what. She did testify. She said mud and blood. Overruled. Okay. In the second interview, did you tell officers you saw mud and blood? Leading question. Sustained. In the second interview, did you describe mud and blood? Leading. Overruled. Yeah. In the third interview, did you feel you need to focus on mud and blood again? No, I focused on the blood because I felt like it was the most important aspect that they were wanting. Okay, so that's the most important aspect. So wouldn't you have led with that in your very first interview? Not your third interview 2 years later. Wouldn't you have really expressed from the earliest time you spoke with officers that you saw a man with blood spatter all over him? That's the most important thing. She's finally admitted that she realizes this 2 years later in March of 2019. Okay. All right. So recross. You got recross now. Okay, so Mr. Baldwin says, so the reason you did not talk about mud when describing this person you saw on 300 North in that third interview is because you were exhausted. You were exhausted talking about mud, apparently. Is that what you're saying? No, I don't believe that was it. I believe it was just the way the questioning came up with that police officer. It's just what we focused on. Oh. It's what the officers were focusing on when they were questioning me. Okay. So you said the word mud 13 times in that second interview. We're doing this again. Yes, we are. So your testimony is apparently that after you said mud 13 times without blood, that's when the video cut off, and then you started talking about blood. That's convenient. No, what I'm saying at that point is where just one officer and I in the room, we were talking and he had me describing the story. I was comfortable enough that I had talked and gave him more details. So now she's saying that she didn't tell him everything in the first interview because she didn't feel comfortable enough. And now this guy is making her feel comfortable. So now she's going to admit that she saw a bloody man. That's not on video, though. The video is missing. The video is missing. Okay. We'll have to take, this is from the second interview. Is this? This is an image from what I know and taken from Libby's phone. I understand. But when you wrote on this, it was during the second interview. Yes, I wrote on it during the second interview. And we have to take your word for it that whatever is on the bottom of those pants is mud. And you said that 13 times, not blood. It's mud and blood on both. Take your word for it, it's mud and blood. I have no other questions. Oh, God. Oh, God. All right. So does anyone on the jury have any questions? So we've got a couple of questions. So this is the sidebar where they discuss the questions. So what was your age in February of 2017? Is it possible during the police interview that they could have misheard or confused the words mud and blood? So Baldwin objects. Dina says they can only testify to their perception, so no. Okay, being that the officer heard the word so many times, so yeah, we're not doing that. Okay. How wide is the road? Okay. Can you describe why you concluded he had blood spatters? That she can testify to. How obvious were the blood spatters compared to the mud? I don't know that she can testify to that. Okay, so I think this is now... Okay, how old were you? That time of your initial interview. How close was the man when you passed him by? Okay, let her describe that. All right, so we've got a few questions here from the jury. So the jury were listening intently, but clearly a little bit, perhaps, needing more details. So this is Judge Gull, who reads these questions to Sarah. So, Miss Carbaugh, I'm going to ask you these questions, and then the attorneys will have an opportunity to follow up, okay? So what was your age in February of 2017? 27, 28. So I'm 35 now. That was, I should say, 26 maybe. But she doesn't know, basically. All right, so no follow-up. How wide is the road? Oh, it's a country road. So if you have two big pickup trucks crossing, you're going to have tyres on either side off the road. It's small enough that it can fit like a vehicle, like one vehicle comfortably. But if you've got two going in the same direction, you're going to have somebody off the road a little bit. Okay. So two big trucks would be hanging off the roads. They'd have to go on into the grass or whatever's on the sides. So you could be driving along on one side of the road and you wouldn't be scared to hit a person who's walking along the other side. Okay. All right. Can you describe why you concluded that he had blood spatter? Because I saw blood spatter. How obvious were the blood spatters compared to the mud on the man that you saw? The blood spatters, you know, when blood is fresh, it's kind of bright red still. It was still in that bright phase. So it's kind of stood out against the light, I think, but it was the small patches with caked up mud. So the whitewashed jeans is what made it more noticeable to me. Honestly, if he had blood all over him, I would have not spotted it outside of the jeans. Well, she said there was that much blood that she thought he'd slaughtered a pig. So do pigs not bleed very much when they're slaughtered? It's not something I want to think about, but dear God, I suppose it would depend how you killed them as to how much they bleed. But if she's comparing it with slaughtering an animal, then it's got to be blood, isn't it? Dear God. How close to the man were you when you passed him by? Less than 5 feet. Like, no, less than 3 feet, honestly. So she's driving just 3 feet away from him while he's on the other side of the road. So this must be a very narrow road. I don't know how two trucks can pass each other, even if they have to drive with like one wheel off. So she's 5 feet away from him, or even 3 feet away from him for 30 seconds. So if she stopped and was chatting to him for 30 seconds, yes, she's going to be 3 feet away from him while she sat in her car and he's on the side of the road. But she didn't. She drove by, possibly 30 miles an hour. But she had 30 seconds to have a good look at him. So her time perception and her distance perception is obviously very different to mine, because I'm not being able to see that this is making a whole lot of sense at all. At all. At all. Okay, any follow-up? All right, so Baldwin's got some follow-up. You previously testified you were 20 feet or more away. I mean, you're driving. Should I ask for clarification? Are you asking, like, as I'm driving, as I'm approaching him? So technically speaking, starting off as 20, then 10, then 15, then 5, then 3, then behind me, like, the closer you got to him. Well, what? She beamed down. She's beamed down when she's 20 feet. She's I don't know, she's somewhere else. She's beamed down, and suddenly this guy's 20 feet away from her. And then she spends 30 seconds, quarter of a mile, if she was traveling at 30 miles an hour. She spends 30 seconds traveling 20 feet. So how fast was she going? Okay, when I was passing him, probably would have been about 3 feet at most. 3 feet? I was driving. I didn't take a ruler out while I was driving. Like, hey, you're about 17 inches away from me. No, I was driving. No other questions. Baldwin must have gone home with an headache that night. Honestly. All right, thank you. You may step down. Okay. Judge, may she be excused from a subpoena? Baldwin says no. May call you next witness. All right, that's it. That's it. That's all. That's it. That's all. All right. Well, what do you think to that? I think she has to be the most ridiculous witness in the entire case. That is just crazy. She's the most ridiculous witness. Now, there are some, I've not read the entire trial transcript. I've not read the entire thing. There are some ridiculous moments in it, though. If you want to hear it all read to you, Criminality is doing it's really good what she's done. She's done day 1 and day 2 so far. So she's not very far through the trial, but she's using AI voices for, rather than just reading the transcript or like getting different people to read different parts. It's done by AI, but they're really good voices. Like the one that's Nick McClellan really sounds like him. It really sounds like Nick McClellan, but it's all AI. It's a really good idea. So I'd recommend, if you want to have the whole thing read to you, then go over to Criminality and you can watch or listen to the first 2 days. And I assume that eventually she'll do the whole trial, but it must take ages to like do those voices. But yeah, it's really good. It's really enjoying it. Day 2 is only a short day though. It's like only 3 witnesses. So I wholly recommend. Oh, there you go. CW's put Criminality's link in. So if you've not been to Criminality's channel before, then grab that link and go and check it out. And go and subscribe to Criminality. It must have got a lot of work. And Criminality and Sleuthy Goosey have been the ones who have basically spearheaded getting this entire transcript and getting it all online so that we can all dig into it. So here's the Google. The link to this is in the description box of this video, so you can go straight to it. I think it will take you to the state's case, but if obviously you can just jiggle it a bit and it'll get you to this page here. So it's got opening statements, closing arguments, testimony by witness, which is split up into defence case, state's case, and then state's rebuttal. So it's all organised. And then if you want to just read like massive chunks of it, then you can go into each volume, but it's all been split up. So it's really, really good to have this resource. It's really good. All right, guys, on that note, I'm going to go. I shall be back tomorrow, allergies permitting, tomorrow evening, allergies permitting. And I'm going to pick another witness. Hopefully not as ridiculous as this one. If they're only short, then I'll do 2. I thought Sarah Carbaugh's was short, but it wasn't. It was long. So I'm gonna call it here and not do a second witness. So yeah, I'll see you then. So over on Michelle After Dark, there will be a video tomorrow. I don't know what case. If anybody's following that really crazy case in Tennessee, that's what I did the video on this morning. Absolutely nuts. Right, 4 murdered, a baby abandoned, and then the suspect is on the run. So it's all going down in Tennessee at the moment. So I did my video this morning on that case. I haven't gone back to check to see if they've apprehended him yet. But if they have, good. If not, then all right. And then allergies permitting tomorrow night over on this channel, and I will pick another witness from this. So thank you to Coral and to Dina earlier on in the live for sending in those donations. And all right, I'll see you soon. Thanks as always to the mods. Enjoy the rest of your day or your evening. And yeah, bye for now, guys. Bye-bye.